and I'm going to move them. Because scaling them pulled them in slightly, and unlike Max where we could change our axes, we don't have that control in view. So we'll just have to move them back out a little bit. I also want to check that they're still relatively into the ground of the terrain below it, so I'm going to select both of them and the terrain number 4. Oh, wrong terrain. Terrain number 2. And look in our front viewport here to make sure that they're actually inside the terrain. And they are. I may lift this one up a little bit, I think. Thank you, Guzzy for the follow. Thank you very much. I appreciate it when you guys follow me on my Twitch channel. So thank you. It is appreciated. Just going to pull this one up a little bit. All right. Going to pull back here. So we've done our render. I've reduced the size of these flowers slightly. Again, we're working with these small flower terrains, these small terrains that I've added our flower bunches to, so that we have much more control over where to place them. If we just tried using the ecosystem to lay our flowers down, view would decide where they go, and I don't want that. I want more control. I specifically wanted to create these flowers either side of the path to help draw your eye up to the model. So that's the reason we're doing it this way. By all means, you could add flowers to your ecosystem of your grass here and get view to spread it out for you if you wanted to. And if you're working with a really large terrain, that's the way you do it. But like I said, I want more control, so I'm using smaller terrains here with bunches of flowers on that I can position by hand. Again, because we're working with a relatively close-up view of the landscape in the ecosystem here. We may tweak these a little bit as we start filling in the rest of our scene here, but for the moment we'll leave it like that. Now, what do I want to work on next? So we loaded our model in. I'm just going to wait for it to load up our file here. Then we added plants, and now we've added some flowering bushes either side of the path. That's annoying me. The material we're using here for the wrought iron work on top of the garden terrace, the highlight on it is really too wide. Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. Like I said to you guys, I did an Art Nouveau entry. Where is it? And that was in a much more of a manicured lawn. But I thought with this one I wanted to go for something that was a little bit different. When I created this, that's pretty manicured and a typical garden setting. But when I created the new garden terrace, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. By all means, it would look okay in a setting like this as well, very manicured lawn. But I was just thinking with the new one, we'd do something different. I want to put it in like a forested environment, so I'm going to be putting a forested environment in the background, and I want it to look a bit more overgrown, a little bit more, not spooky, but yeah, unkept. So yeah, that's the reason I've decided to go with something a little bit more overgrown, a little bit more neglected here for this garden terrace, because I'm going to place it in a forested setting. So the background here will be a forest type look. We'll do that at the end once I've placed the rest of the objects in the scene. Now I think because we're working, like I said, you work from the background to the foreground. I'm going to place another hill on this side and on this side, and we're going to have 2 hero trees either side. So let's have a look at our hero trees. I haven't actually finished creating them yet, but we might as well show you guys here, give you a bit of a sneak peek of what we're going to be pulling in. How I create what I do and what it's going to look like. So I'm loading up speed tree here at the moment. I'm going to pull in one of the maple trees here that I'm working on. So I thought hero trees in the foreground on either side, and I want to use a really gnarly looking tree like these maple trees. They're a nice high resolution tree. They have great texturing. Now these aren't my textures. These are plants that the company that made Speed Tree created. I'm just shaping them the way I want them. So just so you know, the texturing and stuff is not mine, it's theirs, but the shape of the tree is something I've been working on. And this is why I like using Speed Tree to do my hero trees, anything that's going to be close to the camera, because I have a lot more control than I do in view. So basically you have like a spline that runs through the trunk, and you can then move your trunk into any shape that you actually want to create your tree. And that's really handy for getting the exact shape that you actually want to use. And like I said, I know I want these trees to look a bit gnarly. I want the scene to have a bit more interest. Yeah, Speed Tree is an amazing program. Again, if you use the Unreal Engine, it does come with a version for Unreal for free that you can create your trees in if you're making stuff for Unreal. And it does. It's again, Eon View make a tree, a plant editor called Plant Studio, I think it is. Plant Factory, maybe they call it, which is good. But I still prefer Speed Tree. I think Speed Tree, the interface again is a little bit easier to use than Eon's version of their tree stuff, and I have a lot more control over exactly what I want, where I want it. So this is the program I'll be using. These are the trees, the type of trees, once I've finished shaping them exactly the way I want them, that I'll be exporting and bringing into Eon View to put in the foreground of our render there on either side of the path. And they'll be what we call our hero trees, which are just basically any high resolution object that goes close to the camera. And again, this program is good in that once you create your tree sort of shape, you can randomize it. So the program will automatically randomize it. Now View does the same thing with its plants, but View can create some really weird shapes, whereas this program always creates something interesting. So you can see the amount of different types of tree looks you can get just from one tree. Like I said, you can do this sort of thing in View too, but Speed Tree does it better. And things like this where the branches are actually hitting the ground, I would generally not like that. I'd take that branch and move it up. And again, it's really easy to do in Speed Tree. You just grab it and move it. So yeah, the control in Speed Tree is really good, and it creates really realistic looking vegetation as well, as you can see here. So they'll render up really nicely in Eon View for our hero trees in the foreground. So this is the program I'll be using. I'll be exporting it either as an FBX or as an OBJ to bring into Eon View when we start setting them up in our editor, when we start placing them in the scene, that is. Same thing if the leaves, you can always remove the leaves if you want more of a dead tree look. So you've got a lot of options, a lot of variety, a lot of things you can play with in Speed Tree. Yeah. it doesn't just do trees, it does bushes and plants and all that sort of thing. All it does though is create trees, plants, bushes. And like I said, it does come with the Unreal Engine, a version that you can use in Unreal if you're working with that game engine that you can use. I'm pretty sure it's free. I think it's free. I know that you can take out a subscription for it. You may have to subscribe. You had issues getting gnarly roots to look right. Yeah. This is in Speed Tree you're talking about. A Speed Tree is a bit different than most programs you'll use in that it has these spinners to control all of your variables to create whatever it is you're making. But you can get pretty much real-time feedback here as to what it's going to look like while you're adjusting it. In Speed Tree, okay. So getting used to this interface can take a little while because even though it's very clean, which is what I like, they do offer you a lot of options here that you can change. So it can be a bit intimidating at first. When you first open the program up, just because they do give you so many options. Yeah, and that will change depending on what node here you have selected. These nodes are what make up your tree. So you've got your trunk, and then you've got the branches that branch off of the trunk. Obviously, they're the roots here that we're looking at. So yeah, but although it's a great program, it does give you a lot of options, a lot of power. Just getting used to their interface here. Well, you can make a tree in Blender, Sniper Wreck. I don't feel like you've got to use these sort of programs to do it. You know, it's quite feasible to make trees in Blender as well. It just takes more work, that's all. The only advantage these programs have is that it creates trees using algorithms, and the algorithms can create some really natural looking trees automatically for you, as opposed to, say, you having to model things by hand, all by hand. But you can certainly make trees in Blender. You don't need to use these third-party programs. Again though, do remember, I think Eon View do have what they call Plant Factory, I think they call it, which is like Speed Tree. It's the same sort of interface. The interface is different, but the program is the same. You can make your trees in that. I'm not sure if they I think they might even have a free version of that you can download and try. I haven't used much. I've played with it, but I haven't used it a lot personally. So it might be worth checking out Plant Factory from Eon and seeing if they have got a personal learning edition of that you can download and play with. I don't know what the restrictions are with that software though. I do know that they use a lot of node stuff like this, and I prefer the interface of Speed Tree a little bit more than Eon's Plant Factory. The Ivy Simulator in Blender, making trees. Yeah, well that's a good idea, Galen. You should give that a go too, Sniper Echo. Galen says that he's seen people making nice looking trees using the Ivy Simulator in Blender. I'm sure you could. So yeah, no guys, I'm only showing you this program because again, it's one that I use for my work, and I'm going to be using it to bring in these oak trees for our hero trees in our render in View. And I just wanted to give you guys a sneak peek of what the trees would look like that we're going to be pulling in. Fluent Design, hey, how are you? Yes, we've made it into View. Do I ever use X level grow effects? No, I don't. I haven't actually used that. I've heard of it. I haven't used it though. Is it good? Have you used it? And good to see you in chat, Fluent Design. We're working on our render here. This is just a preview quality render of our garden terrace, so we're still setting the scene up. And like I explained to you guys, work from the background and work your way forward. Because when you start adding things in the foreground, they're going to start including things in the background. It's going to be harder for you to place anything correctly in the background if you start automatically putting things in the foreground here. But remember, you can always work in layers, so you can turn them on and off. that does help you your workflow and view as well. So we've scaled our flowers back. I showed you guys the hero trees we're going to be placing either side of our model here. Now I do want to scatter leaves. I've got to try and find them on my hard drive. Maybe they weren't a plant, maybe they're an object. Let me have a look. Oh, it's a native plugin with 3D Studio Max Fluent Design. Okay, cool. Like I said, I have heard of it. I haven't used it, but I've heard of it. Usually with, if I'm doing a render in V-Ray for the studio and I just need a very basic environment for the building, I'll use multi-scatter and things in V-Ray with plants. But if I wanted to create a full-on 3D environment, I generally go into View. It's good to know of, and like I said, I have heard of it. And Fluent Design says it's great, so yeah. And I like I said, I've heard of it. I do know people have used it or do use it, so. I just don't know whether it can cope with really large and full-on environments like View can, because we're already using over a billion polygons in our scene, and it's only just like halfway done. So this is to show you guys those little flower bundles that I've placed in my scene, and I create them just by using a tiny terrain, and I do it this way, like I said, so I have more control over exactly where I place my flowers, as opposed to letting View do it automatically. So creating these little scenes, little sections of land that you can populate up with whatever plants you want, and then place in your scene exactly where you want them. It's a good sort of cheat to get things to look exactly right. Because a lot of people think when they start using View, the way to use the program is to throw an ecosystem down and let the ecosystem do it for you. And like I said, that is a valid way to do it. But you're not going to have much control over where View puts things, not really. You have some control through the sliders in the settings, but not a lot. Doing it this way, you have much more control over exactly what where things are going to be. So. Now, where are those? I'm sure I have dead leaves somewhere. I know I do. I'm sure I do. I've used them before. It's just finding them. Yeah, scattering proxies. Well, proxies are another way to do it, of course, yeah. You can, 3D programs have a limit to the amount of polygons you can load into your scene. So by using a proxy, for anyone that doesn't know, you don't physically load the object in. It pulls it in from the hard drive when it does its render. Fluent Design says that GrowFX user interface isn't that intuitive though. It's good to know. But yeah, this proxy that a lot of 3D software and a lot of designers will use when they populate up a scene that's going to be very polygon heavy is a good option. If you're restricted to only using the 3D software, you don't have an external program you can use. Because basically, yeah, what it does is it just puts a proxy object in where for whatever the thing is you're going to be rendering, and it doesn't physically load that object. It's going to be rendered in until it comes to actually render time. So it saves memory and polygon counts that way. Harder to work that way though. Not impossible, but you don't get to see exactly what's what like you can in View, because it's not using proxies, it's using the actual geometry. But again, for a lot of people, I know in the Archridge studio I work at, a lot of the buildings you don't really need to render out a large environment anyway. They're really only concerned with the building and then maybe the street in the foreground, that type of thing. And that, working in the 3D program that way is completely fine. But if you did need to start creating really large environments or really detailed environments, Eon View, like I said, is the only program I've come across that can do it the way it does it. So, and it does create nice images for you. Because it is a full-on atmospheric renderer, it takes care of a lot of things automatically for you. You don't have to worry about volumetric lights and particles in the atmosphere, because that's all taken into account by the renderer in the program itself. Now, where are those leaves? I may have to go through it after the stream and find them. So like I said, I have used them before and I want to use them in this scene, and I know that they're somewhere. I just can't remember where I put them. Basically, they're just bundles of dead leaves and twigs that I want to add to the scene. Hey Leetness, good to see you. The building is something for smell reference, like a tree or something like that. Yeah, that's exactly right, Gala. Generally when a client wants you to do it with the Archery studio I work at, the clients are more interested in the building and how that looks than the environment. I mean, they want to see an environment. They want some trees, they want to see some grass, they want some hedges, all that sort of thing, depending on what the building is. But they're more concerned with the actual building itself. So the environment is more just to put it into context than anything. That's not always the case though, and that's why the studio did purchase View, because there are times when a client will want a rendered environment for the actual project, and in those instances View can work really well, because it can create a larger environment with a lot more polygons. Leitner says that he's learning anatomy and sculpting faces from scratch. Cool. Then you don't mind if I show it on stream, Leitness? Tell me if you do. He says both of these are done in roughly about an hour each time. So if you're happy for me to show it on stream, I will. You let me know if it's okay or not. This is something Galen's been working on. So is it okay if I post this on the stream and show it to the world, Beaton? Cool. Like I say, guys, I love looking at the stuff you're working on. So, okay. Cool. Okay, well, good to know. I know Galen's happy with me showing stuff too, but like I said, I know some of you guys might want to show me some stuff that you don't want me to broadcast on the stream, and I want to take that into account. So if anyone's not comfortable, I don't want to show stuff people aren't comfortable with. It is very nice, Sleepness. What are you using here, Leetness, to do this anatomy sculpting? Are you using ZBrush? What are you using? So both of them are done roughly in an hour each time. That is looking really good. Very nice work, actually. Yeah, nice detailed work. What are you using to do the sculpting though? Are you using ZBrush, Mudbox? You're doing it in a 3D program? What are you doing? What are you using for it? ZBrush. Cool. Yeah, well, ZBrush is the best for sculpting. That's looking really good. Really nice. Nice detail here. Through the forehead, through the nose, along the cheekbone. Nice work on the ear as well. Mouth is looking very good. And Leedness is saying it has a Mudbox shader. Oh, that's cool. That's fine. You can sculpt in Mudbox as well. It's not as good as ZBrush for sculpting though. You can texture paint in Mudbox too, by the way. Well, I know a lot of guys do texture painting in Mudbox. I don't. Mudbox can do it okay, but I find it a bit fiddly for texturing work. That's why I use Mari. And I use ZBrush myself for any sculpting I need to do. I don't do characters though, so I don't tend to sculpt up faces and stuff. That looks really good. Really nice. Like I said, you've got some really nice detail going on there. The portions look good. Yeah, it's looking really good. These are two separate characters, yeah? One looks more female and one looks more male, or are they iterations of the same character? But they're looking really nice. And remember, Leadness is saying he's been sculpting these up from scratch, which is a really difficult thing to do. You know, it's easy to take a half model head and sculpt over the top of it. Well, not easy, but it's easier than doing something from scratch. Oh, the first is very young. Okay. So you've done a very, very nice job. The eyebrows, I'm assuming you're still working on them. But the only thing, everything looks great. The only thing that I'm looking at here are the eyebrows. Leadness says you need to buff his neck a little and make him less female. I actually thought this was a female, actually. Yeah, I thought you were doing a female and a male initially, but it makes sense if you're saying it's a younger character, male character, which is fine. It makes sense. Like I said, the nose work is very nice, the mouth work is very nice. The sculpting detail on this one's great as well. Cheekbones, and like I said, the ears, you've done the ears really well. It's looking very nice. You're going to make his jaw wider. He's talking about the first character. That's probably why I thought it was maybe a female character, because yeah, very fine jaw. Which some male characters, you know, have, so that's not a problem. But yeah, making his jaw wider will masculine the character up a lot. It has a very pointed chin. Yeah. So squaring off the jaw will help with that. Again, it says on the first, the stronger Adam's apple might be enough to make it longer than that. Yeah, well, that's true too. Kelvin makes a really good point about the Adam's apple. To help make the character look a bit more masculine. But they're looking very nice. I particularly like this character here. I think you've done some really nice detailing work. Yeah, really nice work. Well done. You going to texture them up? Well, I'd like to see them textured. Like I said with you guys, I love looking at your work, and thank you for showing us Lateness, and thank you as well, Galen, for showing the work you've been doing. Remember guys, I'm happy to look at any work that you're doing. Please feel free to pop into chat and let me know. But remember, if you're not a regular like these guys, to tell me, because before you post a link, because otherwise Nightbot will time you out. But please feel free, anyone that has work that they want to show or want me to look at, feel free to pop into chat, and I'm happy to look at it, because that's why I'm here on Twitch. Leetness says he does all the heads from scratch. Now to practice. That's good practice. That's good. And like I said, it's always much more difficult, pardon me, to start a head from scratch than to work with a base shape. You know, to work with a partly sculpted head, doing it from scratch is great practice. Great practice. He says it doesn't take long though anymore. Oh, cool. You always do good work, though, Leetness. All your character stuff is great. Look at all the detailing you put in your models is good. Okay, so what are we doing? What am I doing? Okay, we've got our flowers in. We've reduced the size of them a little bit. I think the next thing we'll be tackling is bringing in the second two terrains that we're going to be placing on top of these two terrains here on either side. So we went from our initial image to our plants, now we've added our flowers. we've made them smaller because, like I said, they're a little bit large. Do bear in mind though that we're starting to move towards the camera, so things are going to start to appear larger in the foreground than they do in the background. But I have reduced the size of them slightly. Again, I wanted them to draw the eye into the model a bit more. We're going to be placing another 2 terrains here on either side, sort of like small hills, if you want to call it anything, that we're going to be putting our hero trees on either side. And then I want to scatter leaves, if I can find them, on my hard drive up the path and perhaps in the background. Look, Galen says he needs to dust off his sculpting skills and learn to sculpt a mouth and an octopus and merge them together for your animation project. Cool. Yeah, well, as Eliteness knows, ZBrush is a program for sculpting now, so... Although you can do it in Mudbox, don't get me wrong, you can sculpt in Mudbox, but ZBrush is much better. And like I said, I don't do character work, but I do a lot of... I do use ZBrush to do sculpting on hard surface stuff a lot. So, I use ZBrush to sculpt in the detail that are on the column, within the columns here. Oh, that's right. But I was going to say, I don't like the highlight that's happening on the wrought iron. I want to bring that back, so I'm going to select my garden terrace. You can do it in Blender too. Well, that's true. You can actually sculpt in Max too, for any guys using Max. You don't need a third-party program. It is built into Max. It doesn't have the control that you get with a dedicated program like Mudbox or ZBrush, but it's certainly possible to sculpt in Blender, as Galen says, or in Max and in Maya as well. In fact, I think Autodesk are incorporating Mudbox into Maya, so it has much better sculpting in Maya, I think, than you even get in Max. I don't use Maya much though, so... Yeah, ZBrush was created for sculpting, so you're never going to get any 3D program that you're using is never going to be as good as using a dedicated software like ZBrush. Because that's what I made it for doing sculpting of polygons. So. And it was, I think it was actually after Pixologic made ZBrush that Autodesk decided that they were going to create Mudbox, or buy Mudbox. I think they bought it from another company. Or even just add some of their sculpting capabilities into Max. It wasn't until ZBrush was on the scene that Autodesk thought it was a good idea to actually include it in their software as well. So ZBrush is definitely the way to go if you want to do sculpting of polys. You know, if you want as much control as possible. But if you're just after basic stuff, then stuff built into 3D software is okay. Galen says Maya has one-click swapping to ZBrush, which is a nice feature. Yeah, Max does too. Max has one-click swapping to ZBrush too. They're GASE, I think they call it, G-O-Z. Next time I open up Max, you'll see it. I have it up. There's a button up on my toolbar that you click and it'll send the object you've selected to ZBrush. You sculpt on it, then you click a button in ZBrush and send it back to Max. And yeah, Maya has the same thing. So it's good that that's included in Max and Maya if you're working with ZBrush. You do have to be careful sometimes because it can sometimes mess your model up. Not a lot, not often, but sometimes. Either the scale will be messed up or the UVs will be messed up from ZBrush. But it's certainly a handy feature to have. And I'm just looking for that wrought iron dome here in my textures because I want to pull back the highlights way too wide. Not that one, it's that one. I'll jump into my highlights. Remember we made it a mid-grey, but I'm looking at the model here to get an idea of what it's going to look like. You see as I pull it down, it widens the highlight. So I do want to pull it right up to around 97%, so it's a very sharp highlight. And I want to pull it back a bit though. I don't want it quite so bright. And take it back to about 6%. Just because I didn't like the reflection that was happening on the actual dome. Of course, 3D Studio Max and Maya also have one-click transfers to Mudbox too, as well as ZBrush. So if you work with Mudbox, you can send your files back and forwards through the Max or Maya interface. Galen's asking me what the name of the middle slider. Which middle slider are you talking about, Galen? You're talking about the one that I just changed for the highlights? The top one is the highlight global intensity. The middle one is the highlight global size. So the global size is how wide the highlight will be. And I've pulled that right out to be shiny because I don't want the highlight to spread out too much over the dome. Yeah, the highlight global size is the middle slider. And basically I've made it shiny so that the highlight is very focused. It's not spread out over the entire dome. Because that was the problem I was looking at here. It was spreading out a bit too much, so I've pulled it up to be much more shiny so that it makes the highlight much tighter. And I've just pulled back the global intensity as well because I don't want it to be too shiny, like it's new, because it's supposed to be old and weathered. Oh, okay, cool, yeah. The middle one is called Highlight Global Size. And the top one is the Highlight Global Intensity. And that's just under the Highlights tab in the Material in View. I don't tend to touch the anisotropic highlighting at all. Not for this model anyway. And the highlight colour is just a mid-grey. Remember, the darker the colour, the less the highlight will stand out. The brighter the colour, the more the highlight will stand out. So if I wanted to make it stand out more, I'd take it to a white. If I didn't want much of a highlight at all, I'd take it to a black. But I've got about a mid-grey for this metal. We may leave it there though for today, guys. When we come back tomorrow, I'll be back on again tomorrow. I always stream at the same time at 5 PM Pacific time in the US. Yeah, you love anisotropic shaders? Cool. I'll be back on again tomorrow. When we come back, I think we'll start working on doing some more, pulling in some of those hero trees and setting up the small environment, the small hills for the either side here. Basically, we don't have a lot left to do as far as setting the scene up. I'm going to be bringing in two small terrains, two small hills that I'm putting either side with some rocks on it. I'm going to be pulling in two high resolution trees from Speed Tree that you saw me working on, those oak trees for either side. I want to try and find my dead leaves so I can scatter them along the path and perhaps back here on the stairs. Once we've done that though, then I'm probably going to throw a couple of flowers in the foreground here. But that'll be it pretty much for the setup of the environment. Then we can do a final render. And once we've done our final render, I actually got to work out what I'm putting in the background as well. So we're still going to do that, but I think I'll use an image for the background. That's a good cheat and it will help to speed up our render. And again, we can get away with using an image because we're using such a small focused render. So we've got the two terrains to add, the two hero trees to add, some dead leaves, some flowers, the background, and then we'll render out a final image, and then I'll take that final image into Photoshop and we'll be doing color correction on it to make sure it all blends correctly. Because like I was saying to you guys, it's very rare that a studio will take an image that's been rendered and use it raw. They always tend to do color correction on any render that they do. It's not something a lot of people realise because you don't know until you work in the studio what they get up to behind the scenes, but it is rare for them to use a raw render. They'll always tend to do colour correction on anything that they do because they want to make the image look as nice as they possibly can, and a big part of that is doing colour correction. So that's what we'll be doing as well once we've rendered out our final image. So I will be back on again tomorrow at 5 PM Pacific time in the US. Remember to keep an eye on my Twitter page at PhilDoes3D for a reminder. I always post 15 minutes before I'm about to go live. I want to thank you guys very much for hanging out with me and for watching and for popping into chat and saying hello. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys in chat. Thank you, Sniper Echo. You're always here, and I really appreciate that too. Like I said, I want to thank Guzzy for following my Twitch channel. I appreciate it when you guys follow me on Twitch, so thank you very much. I will be back on again tomorrow at 5 PM. We will continue on with our setting up our environment here. You're quite welcome, Galen. Thank you for popping in as well and showing your work, and you're all very welcome. I enjoy streaming. I like talking to you guys, so I will hopefully see you again tomorrow. I will be, like I said, back on again tomorrow at 5 PM. Keep an eye on my Twitter page if you're not sure, and we'll finish setting up our environment. Thank you guys, everybody that's been watching and hanging out with me. I do appreciate it. And yeah, I will see you guys again tomorrow. Take care, guys.